Welcome to Day 43 on the Trail. We have 5 readings for today. From Luke 23, verses 26 through 56, Exodus 15, verses 1 through 27, the 52nd Psalm, Job 18, verses 1 through 21, and Sirach chapter 47, verses 1 through 25. We begin today in Exodus 15. The people are 3 days into their journey from Egypt. 3 days since the plagues, 3 days since the Red Sea, 3 days with the pillar of fire and smoke. However, 3 days into their journey, they find themselves without a water source. So how long can you go without water? Well, about 3 days. So after these 3 days have passed, they find water at a place called Mara. But the name Mara isn't just a name. It describes the kind of water found there. It was bitter water. So the people complain about the lack of water to Moses, saying, "What will we drink?" Sometimes we may read this and think, what are they complaining about? It has only been 3 days. They just saw the miracles, and there before them is the pillar of smoke and fire. God is there, just as He promised. So, is their complaint unreasonable? Yes, it has only been 3 days. However, they are out of water. In this story, we do not see God getting upset. Moses takes the complaint of the people directly to God in verse 25. He, that is Moses, cried out to the Lord, and the Lord showed him a piece of wood. He threw it into the water, and the water became sweet. God does not scold them. It does not even seem that God is upset. Instead, God answers their complaint and Moses' prayer by providing a solution. Again, at this point in the Exodus experience, it does not appear that God is upset with their request or with hearing their complaints. In fact, in the New Testament, we find that we are expected to take our concerns to God. So Paul writes to the Philippians in chapter 4, verse 6, "Do not worry about anything, but in everything, by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God." Notice the attitude and approach that Paul includes in his letter to the Philippians. By prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving. How we approach God with our requests and concerns matters. We approach with thankfulness for who God is and what He has done. Now, we will see more about this in our exploration of Paul's letter to the church in Rome. Now, going back to Mara in Exodus 15, God hears the complaints of His people. Perhaps their attitude was not one of thanksgiving, at least not at this point in the story. But in His mercy, God still takes care of their physical needs. Now, the story does not end with them quenching their thirst and moving on with their lives. We also find a balance and a warning when it comes to our spiritual needs and how they relate to our physical needs. Beginning in verse 25. There the Lord made for them a statute and an ordinance, and there He put them to the test. He said, "If you will listen carefully to the voice of the Lord your God, and do what is right in His sight, and give heed to His commandments, and keep all His statutes, I will not bring upon you any of the diseases that I brought upon the Egyptians. For I am the Lord who heals you." When a physical need is met, God gives them a spiritual reminder. God is not there to be a watery delivery service. This is about a relationship that goes beyond our physical needs, which are temporary. This is about a relationship that is eternal. Right after giving them water and supplying their physical needs, He gives them a promise. If you stay close to me, if you trust me, then I will not deal with you like I did the Egyptians. I will do the opposite. I will heal you. Now let's look a bit more closely at verse 26, which reads, I am the Lord who heals you. In Hebrew, this is far more emphatic and present. It reads, Ani Yahweh Rapha. It begins with, I myself, I am the Lord who is healing you. The beginning is very emphatic. I am the Lord. And it is not necessarily, I am the Lord who heals you, but I am the Lord who is in the continuing process of healing you. I know that might sound like a small change, but it speaks volumes. The Lord is not just there when we cry out or have a need, but we have a God who is in the process of healing us, who is with us, and is continually healing us if we trust Him and stay close to Him. Turning now to the Gospel of Luke, chapter 23, beginning in verse 32. Two others also, who were criminals, were led away to be put to death with him. When they came to the place that is called the Skull, they crucified Jesus there with the criminals, one on his right and one on his left. Then Jesus said, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. The first words that Jesus speaks from the cross are words of pardon. These are shocking words. Now, everyone who experienced Roman occupation expected the people who hung on crosses to say something. Ancient historians like Seneca and Cicero said that those who were crucified often cursed the day of their birth, or they would curse the executioner, or curse heaven and earth and everyone walking by. So people were used to hearing those who are being crucified say something while dying on their cross. Yet what Jesus says is completely unexpected. After everything that Jesus had been through, the deceit, the abandonment, the false charges, all of it, they might have expected Jesus to say something more familiar to his enemies and critics. In the 3 years prior to this moment, when Jesus was teaching in their towns and synagogues, they heard him say things like, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, or turn the other cheek. So now, watching Jesus die in agony, were they waiting to see if Jesus really believed what he said and taught? Everybody expected him to say something. But I don't think that anybody expected this. Father, forgive them. Forgive whom? Forgive the Roman soldiers who crucified him? Forgive the Jewish Sanhedrin, the courts which brought false charges against him? Forgive the person in the courtroom of Caiaphas who struck Jesus with his fist during his trial? Forgive Pilate, the Roman politician who knew Jesus was innocent, but cared more about keeping his position and his political agenda? Forgive Judas, who sold his life for 30 pieces of silver? Forgive Peter, who said that he would never leave Jesus, but a few hours later denied even knowing him? Forgive all the people who listened to his teachings and just said, yeah, whatever. How about the ones who said that they would follow him, but ran off and hid when push came to shove? Forgive those who ignored everything that was happening that day, who just kept their heads down and went on to buy food in the market, just like a regular day? Father, forgive them. It's a pretty long list. But down deep, I think we all hope that it's a little longer. We hope that we are on that list as well. The good news is that we are on that list. When Jesus said, Father, forgive them, we were included. You and I are on the list of those that he was speaking about when he said, "Father, forgive them, because they do not even know what they're doing." These are the words of Jesus at the very end of his life as he strains for breath. And he said them so that you and I can hear them today. Father, forgive them. Thank you for joining us today. Until next time, stay on the trail.